Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scot McKay.
How's it going, gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Mountaintop Podcast, the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast, I might add. My name is Scot McKay. As always, I'm your host at Scot McKay on Twitter, where I hope you'll join me. Also on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else except Instagram, where I'm at Real Scot McKay. The website, as always, is mountaintoppodcast.com. And gentlemen, if you have not joined the Facebook group, that's the Mountaintop Summit, we're waiting for you there. That's who we're waiting for. You in particular. Come join us on Facebook at the Mountaintop Summit. With me today is a new friend of mine, and we hit it off pretty well almost immediately. Well, definitely immediately. I called her to chit-chat about what the program was all about, and we ended up talking for, about half an hour about anything and everything. She's really cool. She is an erstwhile professor at Purdue University in Indiana. Nowadays, she is the author of a book with a wonderful title, Average to All-Star. And what she's here to throw down with you and I today about is how to go from being average to being an all-star. Sharlee Lyons from Lafayette, Indiana, welcome.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be with you and your all-star audience.
Well, you sound like an all-star. You got that energy about you, Sharlee.
Hey, you got to bring the energy.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're not feeling it, if you bring the energy, everything else follows.
Well, actual all-stars have said that. When they go into a slump, say, in the sports world, how do you get out of that slump? And you tell yourself, you remind yourself who you are and what you're about. And that's what really separates the average people from the also-rans, even at the sporting level, which of course is the first thing we think of when we think of an all-star, right? When a quarterback throws an interception, if they're a true pro, they go back out there as if that interception never happened, and they start throwing touchdown passes. And that's what separates the average from the truly great. Am I onto something?
I couldn't have said it better myself, Scott. That's perfect. Yes, I believe mindset is a huge piece of being an all-star. And that's what I really talk a lot about in my book, Average to All-Star. And a lot of what I do in coaching with my clients is mindset work. So you are absolutely right.
Tell us how you arrived at this purpose you have of taking people from average to all-star. I'd love to hear the story of that.
Sure. And I'd love to share it. It really started for me. I was a college athlete. I was a college volleyball player and played for some wonderful coaches. You'll actually get to learn about my high school coach, Coach Bauer. I share several stories in the book about Coach Bauer, but she was very much about setting goals. And so that goal setting was important to me very, very early on. Went through my collegiate volleyball career and learned a lot about mindset through that whole experience. Actually went to a Division I school and had a really great freshman season, but learned that wasn't where I was supposed to be. And so I ended up transferring back to school a little bit closer to home, actually a Christian school, Taylor University, and played at Taylor and really felt like I was living in true authenticity there. So I've learned a lot about authenticity throughout my life. Post graduating from college, I taught high school for a couple of years, and then really, as you alluded to, have done most of my work throughout my career in higher education. So working a lot with emerging leaders and young professionals. And really for me, how I've arrived at this and how I've come to this purpose, I really believed it was my purpose all along. But it's funny how you start to live into that. And really the writing of the book for me was a great process. It was kind of like I've gone through my career, both my athletic career and my professional career, and even my personal life as well. To me, it's been several years, over 25 years for me, it's kind of like going on a shell hunt, right? When you go on a shell hunt, you pick up just the shells that mean something to you. And you leave others that don't mean anything to you. And that's really what I've done throughout my career is I've picked up concepts and I've picked up assessments and I've picked up ideas and I've picked up different types of mindsets and those kinds of things, and have picked up the ones that have really meant something to me and have woven them together into a process that I use with my coaching clients to help them become all-stars. So it's a long answer, but I think it shows over a period of 25 to 30 years how I've really learned to live into my purpose.
Yeah, you've given me a lot to work with there, lots of jumping off points to choose from in terms of where we're going to take this conversation. You talked about goal setting. Then you talked about being very selective in terms of the shells you pick up off of the proverbial beach. So there's this conceptualization of prioritization going on, along with that mindset of wanting to go, well, like we talk about around here, good to great. How is that mindset and prioritization so integrally related to becoming one of the few and the proud who become all-stars?
On my website, SharleeLyons.com, I actually have a very simple core values activity. And it's very, very simple. Like when you're doing it, you're almost like, this seems too simple. But I think that is really key for anyone that's going to become an all-star. You have to start with, what are your core values, right? And I'm not imposing my core values on anyone else, but I know what my core values are, right? And I think that's important for all stars. You have to know what those core values are. And then you're able to start layering things on top of those values, right? To me, one of my core values is my faith. And, I mentioned going to a Christian college earlier. To me, since one of my core values is faith, if I have to alter anything and it doesn't feel authentic to me in my faith, then that's not something, that's one of the shells that I leave laying on the beach. But there are other shells that I pick up because they are related to my faith. And that's really, really important to me. So I think it's important to start with core values. And then you're able to pick up the things that really matter most to you, and then go into setting goals and mindset. And, we're talking about a lot of different pieces here that all come together. And one of the things that I really think too helps people reach the all-star status. And those are things that people do that make them above average or extraordinary, right? And I believe in the value of a coach. And that's one thing that I found in the last 15 years or so of my life is having those core values and goals and those kinds of things, but then having a coach along my side. I believe that the coaches that I've had throughout my career have really been, I know my superpowers, and they help me live into those. They hold me accountable, and they're kind of like rocket fuel for me, right? And so I believe those are some of the key elements, and having a coach that helps you solidify and bring all of that together really helps people catapult into all-star.
Several things there. First of all, there's this combination of knowing your core belief system, knowing what your values are. Therefore, you build character from that. Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot around here about how more and more people in today's society, Sharlee, really have no character. It's not bad character per se. I mean, if you believe in making the world a worse place and fomenting pain wherever you go, well, at least you have character, but it's bad character, right?
Right.
Evil people. Most of us, I think, want to leave the world a better place and do right by others and people we love and even total strangers. And that would help us build good character. But if we don't know who we are, what we believe, what we don't believe, what we accept and what we reject, even at the spiritual level, like you've talked about already, it's hard not only to know who we are, but who we're looking for in terms of a spouse, even business partners or cohorts in whatever we're doing in life. And it's hard to be an all-star if you don't have a team, right?
Absolutely.
So, someone's going to be real cynical and say, well, if I'm a gymnast or if I'm a motocross racer or whatever, I could be an all-star. But, the phraseology of the term all-star leads you to believe you are rising above other people who play the same sport you do, and you are the best of the team you're playing on.
And it's not just about a functional skill. It's about your mindset. It's about your character.
Yes.
It's about the power skills and how you portray yourself. So, functional skill is important, but true all-stars have spheres that are behind them that are very, very important as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, you were talking not only about having character, but also having this message, having this purpose, knowing what it is. And when you are true to who you are and you have this purpose and you're spreading it in the world, you're going to find people who disagree with you. And you're going to find people who love you. And a true all-star has to play an away game sometimes. You know, you go into an unfriendly territory and the fans there may boo you, and you have to remember you play for your home team. And when you go back home, they'll love you again. Right. And you've got to be oblivious to these opinions and mindsets of other people if you're really going to be an all-star, right? Because if you let the other team booing you get you down, you'll probably never even make it to a competent level, let alone being an all-star, right?
I would say too that going into those away games, like you talked about, Scott, is a test. And I believe true all-stars love going to away games, right? Because it helps make them stronger. It helps them become more solidified in who they are and what they stand for. And so when they're able to stand that test, I think it just proves more and more to them that, yes, I am an all-star, and I want to keep pushing and moving in that direction. We welcome those hard things, right? All-stars welcome. We can do hard things, and we've got to welcome those because it helps build our strength.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that, because anytime you hear an interview with a truly elite athlete, a true all-star, mind you,
sure,
who is going through a rough patch or has just lost a big game, you often hear about the need for them to lead their team as a captain or as an example in fighting through this adversity and becoming more refined and even tougher through it. What's the metaphor there for life in general?
I think all stars welcome that, right? They somewhat welcome adversity. It's never fun, right? But they know that this too shall pass. This is a test that I have to pass. And I am actually thankful for this test because I know once I push through it and I arrive on the other side of it, I have built a strength of character or a strength of mindset or a strength of authenticity, who I am. At the time, it's never fun or comfortable, right? But fun and comfortable are for average people. That's what they seek out. All stars seek out working through something hard. They seek out tests because they know that once they push through that, they're going to arrive on the other side and they're going to be that much better because of it.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting to kind of ruminate on the simple fact that someone has to lose the World Series. Some team has to have gotten all the way to the Super Bowl only to cough it up. And it may be a bitter loss where they blew one play that would have put them over the top, or it might be just a miserable blowout situation where they get beaten, 40-0 or whatever. But it's amazing how many athletes get better after they've lost. They come back better. And it's amazing how a lot of times when a particular athlete gets too used to winning, it can be a huge setback to their all-star status to finally have to swallow that bitter pill of loss. An objective example from the real world, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and my beloved San Antonio Spurs, who, haven't won anything much lately except the draft.
They're building a lot of character, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. They got a great player in Wemby, but that's still futures, right? Back during the Heatles era with LeBron James on the Miami Heat, they were very loud and very proud about how they were going to dominate the NBA for years and years and years. And sure enough, they got into the finals with the San Antonio Spurs and delivered a crushing blow to my beloved team when, they kind of snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. And of course, we in San Antonio felt like we snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And the funny thing was they got more arrogant, they got more proud, and the rematch happened the following year, right? And San Antonio just destroyed them in the finals with Kawhi Leonard, et cetera, et cetera. San Antonio came back stronger.
They had rocket fuel.
Oh, yeah. They had what they called the beautiful game, and nothing was going to stop them. And if you remember, the Heatles broke up after that. LeBron jumped ship and went to Cleveland, And it was that one loss that caused a huge crack in that arrogant armor. And, apologies to any Miami Heat fans out there. I mean, Spoelstra is a great coach. They got a great team. This year, once again, they're good. They made it to the finals just very recently. The Heat are a good organization. But what an incredible object lesson.
Absolutely.
When someone who's at the
That's
top
what I was
of their
going to say.
game,
It's not about the teams. It's about the lesson here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That team fell apart. The All-Stars couldn't handle the heat, literally, perhaps ironically, when it was blasted at them, whereas the Spurs got better after losing. They didn't give up. They didn't get discouraged. And, after that loss to the Heat, a lot of people on social media were like, oh, the Spurs are going to crawl away and die. This is the end of whatever dynasty they had. But, all the professionals in the sports writing world said, oh, no, not under Greg Popovich, not Tim Duncan, not those guys. You watch, they're going to be back. And they did. They came back stronger, and they won the championship the following year and didn't win any more after that. But indeed, they showed themselves to be all-stars by this magical all-star trait of resilience, which is a huge buzzword nowadays, isn't it?
It is. But resilience is something that you have to learn to build, right? They had learned to build it, and it's a game changer.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So let's talk about these guys. Let's talk about you and me as mere humans. Obviously, we're not getting paid millions to be in the NBA or to go to Super Bowls or, World Series. We're doing our thing. We're hopefully working at our purpose in life and doing the best job we can at it. But, Sharlee, this has been a fun little conversation so far, and I've enjoyed the heck out of it. But what if we really do feel average? And what if we feel like we're grinding and just aren't getting anywhere? Or worse, post-COVID with the economy we're all kind of in the throes of together right now, what if we feel like we're maybe even slipping back, even though we're working harder and doing more? What do we have to look at, and what changes might we need to make objectively?
Scott, that is $1 million question. And I have had people recently, people that I've been coaching with, that have asked that same question. Like, I feel like I'm trying to push forward, and I feel like I'm just being average. And on some days, average is all you have, right? Some days you're just not at 100%. And when you're only at 40% and you give 100% at your 40%, then that's a good day, right? But I think you have to look at it over a period of time. And one thing that I always encourage people to do too, when they express that to me, that they feel like they're slipping back into average, I really encourage them to look at where is their focus. Many times their focus is only on themselves. And what am I doing to get myself ahead and to be all-star in my own power, right? Really, the concept of my book, Average to All-Star, is about it. And there's a lot of things in there that talk about you and what you can do to develop yourself. But a lot of what I believe all-stars is they are the ones that are helping develop other people. So their focus isn't necessarily on themselves. Their focus at times is on others. Harry Firestone said that the growth and the development of others is the highest calling of leadership. And to me, that makes you an all-star in a lot of different areas, but it truly makes you an all-star leader as well. So I really encourage people, when they're hitting that average point and they're feeling that, yeah, you still have to focus on yourself a bit, but you got to really focus on looking outside of yourself and helping develop others.
And indeed, carrying the sports analogy one step further, the true greats, the all-time all-star greats, made everybody on their team better, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just having this conversation I have a high school senior who is playing varsity basketball, and he's not big, but the young man plays with 150% heart. And he's not what I call a sexy player. He's not a big scorer. He's not, somebody that the camera goes to all the time, like in the NBA, but he's the one that's making it happen. He's a great teammate. He's setting picks for the scorers to roll off of. He's getting position and blocking out. So he's actually drawing fouls and getting rebounds. And he's just a great team player. And he makes everybody else on the team elevate. And he plays, like I said, with 150% heart. And granted, I'm a little biased, but I believe he's an all-star Like I said, he's not going to be necessarily be on the highlight reel, but the people on his team that are the high scorers know why they're the high scorers. It's because he's setting picks and doing the things that he needs to be doing on the basketball court. And I look at that. How do we take that example and move it into our everyday lives, right? It's not always about getting all the glory. It's about helping others around you, bringing your value and helping others around you shine and develop.
You know, that's a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of us listening who want to be the center of attention in the Facebook-driven highlight reel world out here.
Sure.
But there are also people out there who prefer to remain behind the scenes, you know, and they want to feel like all-stars too. So what I hear you saying is there are unsung heroes in the all-star world, and whatever it is your goals are, whatever it is your purpose may be, as long as it's true to who you are and there's authenticity driving it, you can be an all-star in that context. So where I'd like to go from here with this conversation is tell us how we can be an all-star apart from the sporting analogy, apart from actually playing basketball or whatever we're doing that's competitive. Maybe we're an accountant. Maybe we're a lawyer. Maybe we're a doctor. Maybe we're someone who isn't in a particularly competitive field. Mm-hmm. Although, you know, you could argue every field is competitive because, you know, you're trying to keep your job and there's always someone to take your job if you step aside or get canned, right? But, you know, realistically speaking, how can those of us who are in the insurance sales industry be all-stars? What do we have to do? How do we feel like an all-star when we're sitting in a cubicle all day?
Absolutely. Great question. And I'm going to go back to that Harvey Firestone quote that I used earlier. The growth and development of others is the highest calling of leadership. I believe that's how we can become all-stars. Granted, we may be a lawyer in a law firm, but how are we helping develop maybe the young lawyers that are coming through the firm? How are we mentoring them? How are we helping them understand the world and the way it works for a lawyer or an accountant or whatever it may be? Maybe, you know, I talked about one of my all-stars that I'm developing, my senior son, who is getting ready to launch into college next year. You know, I've put a lot of work. A lot of what's in my book, he has experienced. He's been my test market. So, you know, are there young people in your life? I believe young people, especially coming off of COVID and, you know, having been in school. I was talking to someone just the other day and we were talking about the seniors that are graduating from college this year were the seniors 4 years ago that had the end of their school years canceled, their graduation canceled, their proms canceled. They have had a college experience like no other. Young people today are hurting, I think, for a lot of different reasons. But when you look at that impact of COVID, so I would say find a young person. Maybe it's in your firm. Maybe it's in your the gym where you go work out. Find a young person or someone that you can add value to, because I believe that's the way you become an all-star. We don't have the functional skill of an NBA player, but you have the functional skill of a great accountant, or, you know, you mentioned attorneys. You have power skills, functional skills in those areas, which is fantastic. How can you bring others along? And I believe once you start looking for it, you'll find those people that you can help give development and growth to. And I believe that's truly how you become an all-star.
Well, you know, the old cliche is there's no I in team. Mm-hmm. And certainly all-star status is an individual achievement. But what I hear you saying is, harking back to what you said earlier about the value of having a coach in your life, is you in turn pay it forward, become a mentor for someone else. And then there's this association with others, not only upstream, but downstream, if you will, if you'll pardon that analogy. It's a rough one, where, you know, you are being taught, you are being brought along by someone else. And then as you achieve because of the gift of knowledge and the gift of encouragement and everything else we as coaches do. And of course, obviously, at least I hope it's obvious, I believe in coaching as much as you do because we're both professional coaches, right?
Sure.
But it is heartwarming to see other people succeed because of the influence you've had on them and in their lives. And you want that to be a positive influence, obviously, or you're not doing a very good job. But it is very satisfying not only to succeed as an all-star yourself, but to help someone else get into that position too. But that has to be apart from selfishness and greed and any kind of narcissistic tendency to want to keep all the glory for ourselves, it involves a bit of a mature realization that, hey, you know what? There's an abundance mentality that should be at play here instead of a poverty
Absolutely.
mentality where I got to take it all for myself and not share with anybody else. And indeed, in our little niche of dating and relationship coaches, we all promote each other's products when we believe in the other person's message. Like-minded people invite each other on podcasts, like I did with you here, and everybody is better for it. And, I've been at this for 18 years now, and there's a lot of paying forward to be done now. I've enjoyed lots of success and had a great time at it so far, and that's a blessing, and it's something that I want to honor by helping other people who are deserving in my eyes be better at it too. But I think a lot of people, indeed, nowadays, with the isolation and the lack of socialization and how people's even social muscles have atrophied, Sharlee, they're not thinking about community much anymore. They're thinking about how much there is that differentiates us from someone else, how someone votes differently or prays differently or believes differently, and how that makes them the enemy instead of someone I should seek to, reconcile humanity with.
Well, you probably have a lot more things in common than you do not.
Right, exactly. What I like to say is, when people say, because I vote this way or because I believe this way, 100 million people can't be wrong. Well, what I like to say is 8 billion people can't be wrong. We're all human together. What are the commonalities between all of us? But I think it's real easy for us to slip into this selfish mindset where we think the universe revolves around us. And if we can first put our arrogance aside, frankly, and believe that someone has something to offer us that may make us better. And it may come from a completely unexpected place. I mean, someone younger than you may have a lot to teach you, especially if you're dabbling in something new. And meanwhile, when you get satisfaction from that, remember that they took great satisfaction in offering you that wisdom, as you took great satisfaction in receiving it. And then, it goes downstream, and that's the way humanity's supposed to flow. This is nothing new, yet when you really, really focus on the power of what you're talking about, Sharlee, being an all-star can't happen in an individual vacuum. You're not going to make yourself into an all-star. So talk to us about some creative ways we can find this partnership and this mentorship and maybe pass it down to others, because I'm sure a lot of these guys are thinking to themselves, well, I got nobody. I'm looking around. Who are these people? Are they going to kind of magically show up like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears kind of thing? Or is it this airy-fairy thing? Or do I have to do some heavy lifting here? Do I have to be proactive?
Right. Well, that's a great question, Scott. And, I have a lot of people, too, as I'm carrying my message that believe exactly what you believe. But I've also had a lot of people that have met me with a bit of resistance. Like, I don't know that I have anything to give, right? Or I don't know if anyone will listen to me, right? But I believe that everyone has a superpower. I believe everyone has values. I believe when they are unselfish, there is absolutely certainly something to give. And I believe, too, that a younger generation, if it's a younger person, I believe in the power of reverse mentoring, right? I think about the number of young people that I've worked with in my career. I have learned probably far more from them than they have from me.
How about that? That's amazing.
It's a wonderful blessing. And still to this day, I have them calling me or, pinging me on LinkedIn or whatever when they have, they've gotten a promotion or something. And they're like, Sharlee, something I learned from you was blah, 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 blah. And I don't even remember the conversation that I had with them. But, and then to see them become mentors to other young people in their organizations, I believe when you mentor someone, that creates a ripple effect, right? And because then they're going to mentor someone else. And think about, we're all mortals. I'm probably going to die in the next 50 years, right? But I hope there are things about my life that will live on. And I hope that's things that are in people that hopefully will impact 4 or 5 generations from here. And so I just encourage people at that point, be open, right? Be open to it. Keep your eyes open and looking for places to mentor people. One of my favorite things to do is to go to athletic events. If my kids are playing, I will be down close to the front row or sitting behind the bench to show my support. But many times I like to go to events and I like to sit high in the bleachers. and just watch and observe people, be it at a theater performance or a concert or an athletic performance. And just watching people, you can see who the natural leaders are and who the influencers are. And I can see, oh, I wish I could teach, maybe there's a young woman that walks across the end of the floor and you can tell that she's uncomfortable walking across the end of the floor. Like, I wish I could teach her how to put her shoulders back and be a confident young woman, right? It doesn't have to be something that takes 6 months to teach someone, right? It might be a quick conversation of speaking life and, practicing that. And some of it is just developing a relationship with people first, instead of coming to them and saying, I need to teach you how to be a confident young woman and walk like it. You know what I mean? That's kind of awkward. But go to places and just observe. You will see places where you can bring value, and you will see places where young people, maybe not just young people, but people where you can bring value and where you can speak life into people. Keep looking for that and you will find it. We find things that we're looking for. When you buy a new car, same make and model, you may think that you have the only one on the road. And then you go out and 2 weeks later, over the last 2 weeks, you see 10 exact cars just like yours, because you're looking for it, right? So be looking for ways to influence and to speak life into others. You'll find it.
It's not a universal principle. Certainly there are all-time greats in the sporting world and in the corporate world and in the acting or even music world who defy what I'm about to lay on the table here. But it seems to me there's this powerful 1-2 punch you're getting at of confidence and humility. Whereas I know I'm good. I know I have the superpower that you're talking about, maybe more than one, but I'm not going to lord that over people. I'm not going to brag about it. I'm not going to use that superpower to diminish others. I'm going to give it away. And that humility is actually, in my estimation, born of the confidence. If I really think I'm good at this, if I really think what I have is of value, then I don't feel like I have to play keep away with other people. Again, there's no poverty mentality. The abundance mentality is, hey, I'm winning. I'm a champion. I want to pass that on to others. I don't have to pretend like I could lose if I make someone better than me, frankly. I coach guys all the time, Sharlee, who end up crushing it, being attractive to women in ways I could only, sniff at. You know what I mean? And
because that's their superpower. That's what they possess, right?
Yeah. Well, they use their superpower to do things their way and be better at it. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. That's why I'm here. I don't want the guys I coach to be one tier less than I ever was to protect my poor widow ego. That's not what a coach should do. I want them to be even better. And indeed, a lot of the times you see great coaches even on the playing field who were mediocre or middling as a player, and then they come along and their true gift, their true superpower is making other people great.
Yes.
And then they become an all-star at it. I think this is a fantastic conversation. And if we understand what our principles are, what our character is, and we kind of spring forth from that with what we're good at and what we're meant to do, and we have this wonderful combination of believing in something and being good at it, then we will welcome the opportunity to make others better, even as we welcome the opportunity to help others make us better. I think it's a fantastic conversation. And Sharlee Lyons, I'm so glad you came today. And what I want to do is I want to point these guys to your book, which I have placed at the top of my Amazon influencer queue at mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon. The name of the book, again, is Average to All-Star by Sharlee Lyons, SHARLEE LYONS. And if you are listening to this show within a week or so of its release, you'll find it right at the top of that queue on mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon. Also, when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Allstar, ALLSTAR, you will be magically teleported to SharleeLyons.com. Man, it must be nice to have a name that's so easy to get the domain for. Sharlee, what are they going to find when they get there?
They're going to find a lot of different things that they offer. Coaching package. I'm getting ready to release a level up leadership for emerging leaders, which is about a 12-month coaching process. Really what I do in that is I help young leaders understand who they authentically are. Some of those core values, looking at their strengths, how they're motivated, looking at their working genius. And then I actually do an assessment with them called Fascinate on how you fascinate others. Actually, that might be something that your audience might really, really like. Maybe that's another podcast in the future. But really looking at in that level up leadership coaching program, that's a group coaching program, helping them understand who their authentic selves are. So then they're able to ripple out their effects from there. So coaching packages, some of my speaking packages as well. One of my goals for 2024 is to get on more stages. And so would love it if there's some areas that your audience might see opportunities for me. And then there's a number of different workshops and things there that I offer as well. So I welcome them to the website and hope they have a lot of fun. Have a lot of fun poking around in there and seeing if there's something of value to you.
Well, all right. Sounds fantastic. And this idea you talked about of fascinating other people. Yeah, there's a definite episode in the works there. You should definitely come back and let's do that.
Happy to do that.
Yeah. Let's make it happen sometime in the relatively near future.
I would love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sharlee, for joining us today. It's been a fun conversation and the kind that motivates guys, even in a world where that's sometimes tough to find. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome. When you positively impact others, you become an all-star.
Yep. Gentlemen, mountaintoppodcast.com is the place to go if you want to get free downloads to make you better with women and feel more like the masculine man you were born to be. Get on my calendar, 25 to 30 minutes. Let's talk about putting a plan of action in place that makes you better with women. Also check in on the master classes, of course. And hey, if you haven't gotten your hands on that copy of my little audio program, yes, and it will make you more of an all-star when it's time to approach women and meet them. This is the antidote to the division and the isolation we're all feeling post-COVID. Gets you back in front of women and will cost you the price of cheap lunch, basically. And it'll be a lot more valuable to you than that. So grab your copy of Yes And when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com. Also, while you're there, visit Jocko Willink's company, Origin in Maine. Also, the guys at Hero Soap and the gentleman at the Keyport. And when you get your hands on any of the products from any of our three fine sponsors, please use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 to get an additional 10% off. All that is there for you, as always, at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scot McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.